Let's do this. Good morning. My name is Diana Warner. I'm a member of Westminster's Palestine Partnership Team. We are pleased to partner again today with the Social Justice Ministry team on this series of forums about the current situation in Palestine. The Social Justice Forums are built around a common theme, and this program year, the theme is Moving from Understanding to Transformation, Effecting Change Together, Guided by God. Through these forums, we want to explore capabilities we need to build and norms we need to examine to be effective transformation partners in our community. This morning, we are pleased to present a recent interview with the Reverend Dr. Munther Isaac, pastor of the Evangelical Lutheran Christmas Church in Bethlehem, one of Westminster's global partners. Due to time constraints, we will present a significant portion of the interview, and on the information table in this room, and there will be a link in the chat for the live stream audience, a link to the full interview with Munther and UCC Minister Michael Spath of the Indiana Center for Middle East Peace. After the excerpt from this interview, we will break into discussion groups for both the on-site and live stream audiences and wrap up with upcoming Social Justice Forum information. Also on the tables in the room and in the live stream chat, you will find 4 discussion questions which we will discuss following the video presentation. And there's a lot of other good material on that table too, so stop by on your way out. With that, here's the video excerpt.
Did you hear the question, Munther? Yeah, the
Yes.
psychological, the long term.
So there's first the long-term trauma on those in Gaza. Whether it's actually dealing with actual physical injuries. We know that many will have lost body parts. And actually, as a matter of procedure, if you had an injury and you got to the hospital, most likely they did amputation to you, and very likely also without anesthesia, because there is no medical system right now in Gaza. So many people lost body parts, sadly. And then the trauma, the psychological trauma itself, from what our friends are telling us, is horrifying. The children, the women who don't sleep, the men who are concerned, the level of humiliation people are facing just to get wheat to make bread. It's appalling, especially when it comes to a country that is to a people that have a very high sense of pride, and to go through the shame of standing in line or fighting just to get wheat. The images are heartbreaking. I don't know if this happened to me, if I will ever recover. And you're talking about millions of Gazans who are now starving and just looking for any piece of food. The difficult feeling right now for us here in the West Bank, knowing that we feel powerless, and knowing that we feel abandoned, actually, not just powerless. We feel we can't do anything, but there is also a sense of abandonment, to be honest, not just by our, the other side, but also by our friends, because this war revealed to us where many whom we thought are our friends are actually standing right now. Sadly, we thought that there was those on our side, churches that always talked about peace and justice, that still didn't call for a ceasefire. So it's really sad, and it's gonna take a lot to recover, and the fate of the 2 million refugees right now is unknown. I can't even imagine being in their shoes, trying to survive, but then not knowing where I will end up with, whether in Egypt or outside or in the West Bank. We know that homes are destroyed. The people I talked to lost their homes. And now they have to begin life somewhere else from zero, if not from minus, and dealing with the psychological fear and trauma. It's gonna take years, but we are resilient. In our recent history, in the last 75 years, this is worse than the Nakba, let's be clear. But we survived, and I think the resilience of the Palestinian, as I said, I think we will be okay. We will be okay because we are on the right side of history. And what I can't understand is, how will I live with myself if I was complicit with such a genocide? How do people live with themselves when they see these images from Gaza, the images we continue to see even today, especially with the rain now? And I'm not a politician, Michael, even though now I get interviewed by the media thinking I have the solution for the but I look at it from a moral, ethical issue. How can you live with yourself knowing that you were complicit in such a horrifying genocide? This is what I can't get.
I've been talking here in writing and in presentations and sermons that Israel's assault is not a war only against Hamas, and not a war against Gaza, not even a war against the Palestinian people, but a war on Palestinian history, on Palestinian memory, Palestinian tradition, Palestinian culture. It's a war against the very idea of Palestine itself. It's a war to erase Palestine from human memory. I mean, that's the very definition of genocide, yes? Talk to us about your perspective.
Michael, you don't need to ask my perspective. You need to listen to what Israeli officials are saying.
Yeah.
Why would they destroy universities, residential buildings, cultural centers, including the Orthodox Church's recently built cultural center? And they're boasting about it. They're boasting about killing the possibility of life in Gaza, and they don't feel the obligation to lie about their intentions. Yesterday, there was a big conference in Israel for many settler groups, and Israeli government ministers were there, and they were openly calling for resettling and building settlements in Gaza.
That's right.
Now, your own, I think, Rashida Tlaib was, because she said from the river to the sea, it was a big deal. And she's not even, she's an American congressman. Now you have Israeli officials telling you that they will erase Gaza and build settlements on it. And the world is fine. And all we hear, no, we will not let them do it. Listen, we've heard the story before. When was America ever able to say no to Israel, especially in the recent history? And every time I speak with, either diplomats, Europeans or Americans, and they say, no, there are red lines. I say, come on, we've heard this before. These are all empty words to us. You say one thing and facts on the ground speak another thing. I think this will be a test to the will of the world right now. Whether they are serious about rebuilding Gaza for the Palestinians and whatever they're talking about, and that the refugees should return. I don't know to return to what, but whatever. Or Ben Gvir will build settlements and they will erase. In Palestine, we always knew the intentions of this war.
That's right.
And as I would tell people, I would maybe I would excuse you if you didn't see it in the first week. I'm talking about people in the West. 3 weeks, month and a half. But guys, it's been 116 days. I don't know how many days now. Come on. Are you listening to what they're telling you they're doing? Are you seeing the footages? Are you reading the numbers? They're destroying Gaza. This is an annihilation. And the intentions to resettle Gaza are not to build settlements in Gaza, but not just on the outskirts of Gaza, deep in Gaza. They're not hiding their intentions. They are not hiding their intentions. Other officials are not hiding their intentions about the so-called voluntary immigration. They're telling you they're doing it. What is the world doing? They're suspending funds to UNRWA because of 12 people allegedly involved in the October 7th attack. This is the level of hypocrisy and racism we're dealing with.
This is genocide in real time right before our eyes. And we have Christian nationalism on the right and Christian impotence on the left. And most of the world is silent at best and complicit and criminal at worst. Munther, our eyes are rightly focused on Gaza, but that's provided a lot of cover for Israel to do a lot of damage, build extra settlements, destroy more homes, evict more people in the West Bank. So I want you to just tell us, first of all, how you and your family are doing, because many members on the phone call here have been to Palestine. So how are you and your family doing? How is Bethlehem doing? And talk to us about the West Bank in general.
I'm okay. It doesn't matter how I'm doing. There's a genocide in Gaza. That's the story. I'm okay. Whatever is happening to us is fine. And we're not talking about the West Bank because it feels silly to talk about it in comparison to what's happening in Gaza. Believe me, if this was before October 7th and what's happening in the West Bank was happening then, we would have, raised our voices. But we're not talking about it because of the severity of the genocide in Gaza. The West Bank right now is the target of numerous incursions that happen right now on a daily basis. Even in Bethlehem, it feels like it's happening on a daily basis. It's very common to see Israeli military cars in the middle of Bethlehem now, especially in the early hours of the day. They go into homes, they search homes. Usually, they came to Beit Sahur, they found nothing, but they search homes. They've attacked a 11 years old child in our town. Today, as I said, they killed 3 people in the hospital. These are daily occurrences. Bethlehem is isolated from Jerusalem. Right now, the side roads are open, but the main roads are closed between, if you're coming from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, the main checkpoint is closed with exceptions. Most of the permits were canceled. So very many people lost their jobs in Jerusalem. So there is high unemployment in Bethlehem as a result of the closure of Jerusalem and the fact that there is no tourism. Is it safe? Life goes on. We go to our jobs normally. You have to be careful where to go and where not to go. But as I said, just 4 days ago, the Israeli cars were right at Manger Square. In the heart of Manger Square, Israeli military cars. We're surviving, but we're seeing many people leave. They get tired of life here. They get tired of this lifestyle, especially now that even a trip to Ramallah might take 3 to 4 hours. Psychologically, people feel down. When I say we are broken, I mean it. Because of all the images we see, all the trauma of what's, and as I said, it's nothing compared to what's happening in Gaza. But you can still come to Bethlehem. I saw a question on the chat. it's not as easy as it used to be. In other words, just drive normally through the checkpoint, but there are other roads. And once in Bethlehem, you're safe. Sadly, we don't see many people, but we're making calls now for people to come and visit us and be with us in Bethlehem. We've just announced that Christ at the Checkpoint in May will take place. Some people ask, is it safe? And I say, we're asking you to come and be in solidarity with us, even if there is a minimal risk involved.
You know that you and Mark Braverman and Doug Thorpe and I will be meeting after this call for a few minutes to talk about a delegation at the end of February, sponsored by Kairos USA, to stand with Kairos Palestine and the Global Kairos for Justice Coalition. And for all of you who are on this call, you can look to hear more from myself and Doug Thorpe and Mark Braverman at Kairos USA about that in the next number of days after we talk to Munther.
Munther, and Michael, one of the most profound acts of solidarity that I've ever, and it's hard to put in words what it meant to us, was when South African leaders made the call and said, well, actually, we told them we need you to come, and they immediately said, yes, we're coming. And to our surprise, they said, yes, we're coming in 2 weeks. So we had to organize everything in 2 weeks, even less. And they left their churches, their families during Christmas. You're talking about influential leaders, and some of them pastor churches, big churches, including the dean of the cathedral in Johannesburg.
Right.
And they said, Christmas is canceled in Bethlehem, the celebrations, we're coming to be with you. And we're going to come through Jordan because, we don't want to come through Tel Aviv. So they've added another dimension to their trip, another day, another layer. And they just came and spent time with us. They visited churches, they prayed with us. They were in attendance when I gave the sermon on the 23rd. They were on the 24th. And as I said, it's hard to put in words what that meant to us.
I was on a Zoom call with Father Edwin Arison from Cairo,
Yes.
South Africa yesterday, and we talked with the group that I was on the call with. I asked him to share with us about his visit and the South Africa visit. Let me ask you.
And there were
please.
a few Americans as well, by the way. It wasn't just South Africans. Yeah.
Well, you've answered this question a number of times over the last few weeks. You and Christmas Lutheran Church went viral this past Christmas when Bethlehem canceled public celebrations, encouraging Christians to celebrate in their homes and churches. You all at Christmas Lutheran Church created this powerful, inspiring, and prophetic Christ under the rubble. And many of us who preach at churches and teach use the image and quoted you, Munther, as you know. And we just shared the 2.5-minute YouTube that you created. So I want you to just talk to us about Christ under the rubble.
Yeah. So it's good to see how it came to life, the idea. And the idea came from, it began with the sermon that I gave, I think, the third Sunday after war. And back then we were really troubled by the images. Back then there were many images coming. Electricity was not cut and connections. And just after the church was hit and 9 children were killed. And we were very angry from everything, from everyone, even from God. And I said, why did you leave Gaza? And I preach a sermon of lament. And I said, where is God? And in that sermon, I said, we search for God. And we ask the question, where is God in the midst of this? and we did not find a philosophical answer nor a theological answer, but rather our experience. And I've learned this from my predecessor, Mitri Rahib, a Palestinian theologian and pastor, everyone knows, when he said, God shares the fate of his people in this land. The God of this land shares the fate of its people. His house is destroyed, his son is killed, the land is made to waste. And so I brought his words to the current conflict, and I said, God is under the rubble in Gaza. God is in the operating room. We see God in every child killed. And that was a message first and foremost addressed to our people. I was trying to help the Christian community in Bethlehem in the midst of a very deep crisis, knowing that many people listen to my words, not just in our congregation. And I said, God is under the rubble. We see him in every child pulled from under the rubble. And that message resonated, as I said, and the idea of a God who suffers with us, who's in solidarity with those who are oppressed, to the extent that he died on the cross as a victim of the very same violence. And so when we were about to prepare for Christmas, and I know we're not going to have a tree, the connection between the Christmas story, what's happening in Gaza, and the concept of God under the rubble was very natural to me. Not only because of Jesus under the rubble, but the Christmas story, including the element of children killed and the Holy Family becoming refugees. Jesus, when he was born, he was in solidarity with the oppressed, with the occupied. He was born among the marginalized, to the extent that he himself survived a massacre only to become a refugee with his family into Egypt. So he experienced displacement, his family experienced displacement. So the connection was natural, and we as a church, church family came, including children. We all gathered, many of us, and we created this manger. I never expected it would go this viral. I put it in the church. I preach in Arabic. I explained the meaning to our congregants. People were literally in tears.
Yeah.
And we looked at it the first time when we finished putting it and we looked at it, I was in tears. It was just, it spoke to us in a very powerful way. And then I shared it on the social media, and in addition to that, because of the attention it received, I added the element to explaining its meaning by saying, this is what Christmas looks like in Bethlehem, in Palestine today. This is what, and our children, the world is celebrating while our children are under the rubble, our families are displaced, and our homes are destroyed. And if Jesus were to be born today, he would be born under the rubble in Gaza. So this was the message behind it. So I emphasize this was a message to our people first, but then it was a message to the world. And I'm grateful for the many, many churches who, in solidarity, read that message, tried to do something similar. And I'm grateful that God used us to send a powerful message to the world, not just about Gaza, and that's the most important thing, but also about the meaning of the Christmas, the meaning of the incarnation of Emmanuel, and really challenge the way many Christians are complicit in this war.
When you and I've talked in the past, when you met with our group this past June, you've mentioned that when you do your tours and speaking, you like to focus on engaging with people who identify as Christian Zionists, not just speak to the choir, but by people who, like I say, are Christian Zionists. Kairos Palestine and all of us on the call today realize it's a Christian heresy, but Christian Zionists in our country and others hold important positions of political power here in the UK and other countries. So, I mentioned that impunity and untruth and propaganda are part of empire, but also religious legitimation of oppression is part of Empire 2. So talk to us about the theological and politically destructive nature of Christian Zionism.
Here's, I'm thinking of a quote that Mike Johnson, who's now all of a sudden became the House Speaker, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
What he said, I think right after or right before he was elected. And he said, as Christians, the Bible tells us to support Israel. We are, it's our duty as Christians to support Israel. And if you think of what he's saying, what he's basically saying is that Christians should support Israel regardless of the context, regardless or whether Israel is committing war crimes or not. It doesn't matter what Israel does. The Bible says support Israel, you support Israel. So even if Israel commits a suicide, this is the kind of simplistic yet very dangerous theology that Christian Zionism represents today. A theology that actually has nothing to do with simply a theological belief about the end times or about eschatology, because it's more of a worldview and a political worldview, and that's usually translated into political activism and into support of colonization and empire. You've got now Israel, which is a state founded by European settlers as a settler colonial endeavor, facilitated by the British Empire then, and theology, biblical interpretation, was just the justification and the rationale for this colonial project. If you actually think of it from distance, and if you step outside of what's happening, you step off outside the Christian circles and look from distance, what you basically have is a group of people imposing their religious beliefs on another group of people by asking them, actually not asking, by forcing them to accept the notion that their God gave them this land thousands of years ago, and as such they're entitled to it. And so when they kick you out of it, when they commit ethnic cleansing, it's because God gave it to us. Imagine such a narrative in any other context. Imagine it outside of our, and I think Christians sometimes are so caught into this, they don't see the picture in its fullest impression. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's colonialism, but somehow we convince the world that no, it's not. It's the Jews returning to their land. They were here thousands of years ago. Thousands of years. Really? It's not colonialism? Because Jews are returning to their land? So a Jew born in Russia today, if he decides to come and live in a settlement in Bethlehem, he's returning to his land. But a Palestinian kicked from his land in Gaza now probably will never be able to get back. He has no right in the land. Why? Well, religion, theology, the Bible. No. Why? Because of colonialism. Why? Because of prejudice and racism towards Palestinians. The cover is theology.
Okay, lots to think about, and lots to talk about. Before we get started with the discussion section, just a couple of items. For those attending in person in the Meisel room, please discuss the 4 questions that are on the sheets on the table. There's a sheet for each of you, and you're welcome to take notes on those, obviously. And we hope you will go through all the questions. For those attending on the live stream, please think about and discuss the same 4 questions as they're prompted by the online moderator. As part of our ongoing effort to promote respectful conversations around concerns in our community, the Social Justice Team has established guidelines for the social justice forums that you see now on the screen. Please take a minute to review these. Before we get started, a short prayer. Let us pray. Holy One, God of justice, breathe into us today a spirit of curiosity and humility. Help us engage with mindfulness, following the lead of voices from our community. Guide our speech and our self-awareness so we may honor the divine in all people. Amen. So I invite you, if you want to spend a moment individually looking at the questions and thinking and making a note, and then talk around the table, or if you want to just plunge right in. But again, you're welcome to take whatever notes you want. We expect you to take those sheets with you, but we would like you, toward the end of the discussion, there will be, I can't see the clock, close to 20 minutes to do that. And we really want your feedback, especially on question number 2, which asks, what more do we need to learn? So there is, on the yellow sheet on the tables, ask that question specifically, and we'd like you to leave any comments you've got, any ideas about what more do we need to learn, because that may help guide us in future forums. So thank you very much. Have a good talk. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to end the live stream, so if I could have your attention for just a moment. Thank you for your participation. We are glad for this turnout, and we're glad for the active discussion. As I said, please submit your responses to question number 2. Those on the live stream can submit it to act@wpc-mpls.org, and we'll use these as a guide to upcoming forums. The social justice forums will take a break during Lent and resume after Easter. We encourage you to participate in the Church in the Round discussion groups during Lent, and please watch the bulletins and church communication for upcoming topics and speakers. Thank you.